Okay, welcome everybody. We are now starting the fourth of our four coaching calls. And today we're getting into a very specific topic. It's one that I've actually had a lot of fun working with, and it's working with umbrella accounts. I think the need for umbrella accounts has been around for a while. Infusionsoft is not good with anything that is member to member when it goes one to many. If I have a school teacher with many students, if I'm purchasing something and I'm purchasing something for two other people, like maybe we're signing up for an event and I'm the one with a credit card and I'm signing up multiple people, it's just not really good at that. It wasn't originally designed for that. Memberium has come up and added a feature for this. It's been around about 2 years now, and it's called umbrella accounts, parent-child accounts. And what I'm going to be doing this is something similar to what I did in the part one of this course when we demystified how Memberium works. What I'm wanting to do with this one is to demystify how umbrella accounts work. They do a lot, but once you understand some of the basics, it's actually pretty straightforward. The complexity is in the details and all the little things you can do, including formatting screens and style sheets. So I think if you kind of understand the platform better, you'll move along. Now, there are 3 or 4 videos in the umbrella account feature of the site. They cover everything I'm going to be covering in here. Maybe not the demystification as well, but everything is there with some really good example sites. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, if you don't have Memberium Pro, these domains will not work. I'm sorry, the umbrella account shortcodes don't work by design, right? So you have to have the right license. But once you have the license working, you're good. So let me start off by showing you a site, and this one is also referenced in the videos that I have. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here. So in the videos that I have, this is a site that's actually almost about to launch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as a parent. Go figure. And a parent account is nothing more than an account that has access, and even the access can be made optional, but it's intended to be the person that manages other people. So I go here to the My Accounts page, which is a standard My Accounts page for a program that has subscriptions. So as a matter of fact, let me review this because I haven't reviewed it, and this is about administration. So I'm a parent, but I'm also someone who has an account. You can update these so that you can update the person's name, their phone number. We typically avoid changing the person's email address, because if you change the email address, it implies you're changing the username that they use to log in, and that can be a problem. It can cause customer service issues. So some people who have this, what I recommend is have people kind of like force them to work to change their email address, because it's a pain. This here is the update password. If you look at your own sites, the perfect starter kit sites installed in your environment, you'll see that they're actually, it's one Memberium shortcode. Very, very easy to implement. Now, these here it's one Memberium shortcode, and I'll show it to you because we're going to be jumping into this page, done twice. This one only allows you to add a new credit card. And this one here updates the most recently added credit card, which is the one that is the subscriptions are going to be charged against. So oftentimes a bank will come up and send you like a replacement card. For example, I had an American Express card and the chip had gotten damaged. So I could swipe it, but every time I went somewhere, it would like choke. And so when they sent me a new one, it worked just fine. The number was the same, but the 4-digit CVV was different. The expiration date was different. So in order for that to continue to work properly, although once you have a subscription going, it's usually okay. In order for it to continue to work nicely, you had to go in and update the, the details that go with the card number. I'll show you also that if there is no credit card on file, which in a subscription is unlikely, we don't display this one. We only display this one. Umbrella accounts. We add this manage my members and we wrap it in a short code so that it's only seen by people who are parents. Child accounts have no business seeing this button. And for that matter, they don't have any business seeing this because they're not paying for it. It's being paid by the parent. So there's one transaction and that person is the one that's allowed to, kick people out, add people, and make any modifications. So when I jump into the manage my members, I have an interface that tells you, okay, this person has 5 of 10. And I didn't set up my test account properly, but this one has 5 members, but we didn't initialize it with how many were in here. And since it's a free account for me, I get to add as many as I like. This is just a link which we provided so that if someone runs out and then they can no longer add accounts, they can request more. And what's happened here is since the number 5 is bigger than the total, it's not allowing me to add new ones. So at least that part's working. And then here's a list of the child accounts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that go with this parent. Normally, we would add a disconnect button here so that you can get rid of people. And then, like, let's say someone leaves the company and you want to add someone else in, you can disconnect them and add them. But in this specific implementation, we're calling them burner accounts. So you can allocate it, but you can't ever reallocate it to someone else. You actually have to buy more of them. So by design, there's no disconnect, but we do give them the ability to peer into the child account. This is a certification of sorts. So when you click on view the learning progress, you actually see that this is a 14-step LearnDash program. They completed 1 out of the 14 steps, and then here is their score on the quiz that goes with it. And you'd be surprised, this is actually done with 1 umbrella shortcode that Memberium provides you. So it's not like you've got to work really hard to make this work. We did experiment with this, and we have to add this warning because if the child hasn't yet logged in and you go to check their status, the page is blank and there's really no way around that. So, along with showing you how this works, we're showing you some of the tricks of the trade that we use so that you don't get kind of awkward moments. Are you guys following me? So this is just an explanation of how the interface works. Good. It is so much nicer to have people listening than just talking into the air because the nods are like very appreciated. Okay, so how does this work under the covers? So I'm going to go to the member site, which you all should be familiar with because it's the one that you guys log in to get my program, right? I had to use this one because my Memberium license is tied to my domain, larryjacob.com, and the Perfect Starter Kit that I'm using is on a WP Engine domain, so the Memberium Pro features aren't enabled. So this is what mine looks like under the covers. I've got 3 versions of this course. So, I mean, just in case you guys are wondering. So you guys have access to this one, but this is a do-it-yourself version, and this one, no, this is do-it-yourself, and this one is actually in the process of being renamed to the Breakthrough Course Selling System. So that's why we have 3 that look the same. But let's jump on over here to the dashboard, and let's go to the configuration screen for Memberium umbrella accounts. So let's see, I go to Memberium, and umbrella accounts is only going to appear if you've got the Pro Memberium license. Otherwise, that will just be missing. Now, I purposely set this to no so that I could show you how this works, and we're going to kind of wake the site up as we go. I'm logged in as the administrator, and I'm going to go to the members.larryjacob, and I'm going to go to the Manage Members page. So I created a manage members page. I don't have a my accounts page on the site because I don't need one. So we can access it. I haven't protected the page. And by the way, I purposely have not formatted it. Like for example, on the site that I was using as a demo, this here has a lot of style sheet work, which makes looking through the examples really difficult, because when you look at it as an administrator, it doesn't look nearly as pretty as this one. But as a result, this one just looks a little ugly. Now, you'll notice I have not turned on the umbrella account features. So as a result, Memberium sees these shortcodes and says, I don't recognize them. I'm not going to interpret them. So these are the ones that you use in order to see those things. And here is the view progress. This is the one that lets me see into the page. And this one here, again, it uses an umbrella account shortcode. And the shortcode is just, Memberium is saying, I don't know what that is. So let's pop on out of here, and I'll go over to the page here. And now I'm going to hit yes. So I'm turning on the extension. So it isn't enough to just have access to a pro license. You have to turn it on. So now I'll go and I'm going to refresh this page. And you'll notice that the shortcodes become invisible. Now that means that at least Memberium recognizes it, but since I'm an admin, I don't really have an Infusionsoft context. So there's nothing for Infusionsoft to do, but the shortcodes are now working. They're invisible. So let's go over to, I'm going to go over and open up a Firefox session. So that way I have a different context. And I'm going to log in. I'm doing members.Larry Jacobs. So I'll log in the same way you guys all would log into this site. But I'm logging in now as parent. No. Now I'm logged in. I gave this person only access to the Breakthrough Course Building System, and there is no My Accounts page. So I actually have to go to that page. Now this is an account, and this person doesn't yet have parent authority, for lack of a better word. I haven't marked them as a parent. So this is what a child would see if they accessed this page. Now, because we would not turn on the Manage My Members button, child accounts wouldn't even know this page exists. And then typically what we do is we protect this page so that only parents can access this, this URL. And if child accounts get to it, we'll redirect them to the dashboard. And that's very similar to what we did with the login page. That redirect trick that I showed you on the My Accounts page. So let's take the next step. I'm going to go into the configuration page, and let's start looking at these features. So whenever I add a child account as a parent, we have the ability to run an action set. We don't have an ability to complete a tag goal in a campaign. So what I typically do is I create an action set that sets a tag, and that tag is the one that launches the campaign sequence. So it's just a way to connect the two. You could do them in action sets. I just favor doing them in campaigns, and that way I don't have to teach, students like yourself and my team members legacy action sets. There's only when we're adding a password, that's one of the few places I recommend using action sets, and I explained that in one of the other videos. So we're not going to go here just yet. What we need to do is, and the parent action set is actually parent action set. Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to set up a tag. That's the one that says, if this person has that tag, they are a parent and they need to get treated as one. So, you know, I got real creative here with names. I am a parent. I'm a parent. So this is a parent that that is the key that this site, that is the tag that this site will use to identify a parent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my Larry Jacob Infusionsoft account, and I'm going to look up that record. And get this, there it goes. Now, right now, this account doesn't have very many tags at all. So they've got, oh, okay, look, so I had done it before. So this one here is the one that allows them into the site. I had previously assigned them as a parent, but the website didn't recognize that tag as the parent tag yet. So I set that there. I'm going to hit save. And now, when this person gets logged in, okay, and I'm sorry, now I'm disoriented. Where should I be? Oh, I'm going to go here. So I'm going to refresh this page. And you see that, lo and behold, now this person, the umbrella account shortcodes are actually doing something now. Now, I'll go into and start showing you the shortcodes and so that we can see exactly how they work. But we have 1 of 10 members. And then this is an ugly form, but this form will allow you to add members. And then this is a listing of everybody in the course. And in here, I can view their LearnDash progress. And there's the disconnect button that I referred to before. So this enables me to ask child 1's access. This allows me to peek into their progress. Now, I haven't yet logged in as this child. So when I jump on in there, you know, we're telling you, hey, there's no progress, access not permitted to the course's record, basically because the person hasn't logged in yet. So this is the beginning of this. Now, where did we get this number 10? So let's go over here to the configuration screen. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that the minimum child accounts has a default of 10. Now we can change this number. So that's updated. Now I'll go over here and I'll do a refresh. And it becomes a 5. So there's nothing particularly magical about that number. There's a couple of different ways that you can adjust this number, and I'm going to show you those now. Now, I am going to visit this page now through the Thrive editor. I don't want you guys to drive yourself crazy wondering, how did George get that number to quickly update like that? And how did it recognize the tags and stuff? I intentionally added this mem sync contact at the top of the page so that this page always refreshes tags, even though keeping me, as I'm teaching, from having to log out and log back in. This is also a page that's not visited that often, so I don't feel too concerned about using it on this page because it's not going to be a performance issue. I mean, there's not that many parents, and there's not that many parents on this page that frequently. But that's why the numbers are changing. So this short code right here conveniently tells me you have X of X accounts. And so it knows how many child accounts are going to be shown down here, and it knows how many total you have. We'll get into this in a moment. So here's this number. So let's see what other ways can we change this number. Now, typically what I do is I keep this number at 0, and I allow the modification of the counts to be based on what the parent purchased. Now, it can be done a couple different ways. The most common ways is via subscriptions. So if I have a subscription, I can attach a number to those subscriptions. And this ends up being very convenient because I can also have people buy multiple subscriptions and then bump the number up by the number of subscriptions that they have. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this person has, if they buy a test product, I'm going to give them, I don't know, let's give them 20, right? So I've just made this test product something that Umbrella account says, hey, if you got one of these subscriptions, I got to give you 20 spots. So let's go over to the parent account and let's go to orders. And I'm just going to come up and say subscription, and I'm going to find the test product. It doesn't really matter how I pay for it. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to purposely invoice it so that there's actually really a purchase going on. Now it's an unpaid order. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pay it. And I'll just say I paid it with a credit card, but I paid for it offline. So I'm just doing Infusionsoft stuff here. So all I did was I add, so now this person has a paid subscription for that product. So now I should be able to go over here. No, wrong place. And I should be able to do a refresh. And you see now I have the number 20 in there. So subscriptions are the most common way that we add to the numbers here. Now, another cool way, I think, is by adding a tag. So we can come up and look at a tag, and I'm going to pick a tag that I created a little while ago. You may have noticed it as I was scrolling through them. And so I'm going to come up and I'm going to say, no, that's a new tag. Create, oh, so it's a drop down here. So give the parent 10 children. And the nice thing about this is that these will all sum up nicely. So if the minimum requirement is 5 and then I've added 20 with a subscription and now I add 10 more as part of this, they all work together nicely. We can go over here and, no, hold it, wrong place. I'll go back to Mr. Parent here and I'm going to give him that tag. So it's under my Memberium. Of course, now I have to find the tag. Oh. Oh, isn't that sweet? I can't remember where I put it. Memberium. Give parent 10 children. So now this person has this. Remember that I do have that mem sync set up on this page. So it'll recognize a new tag when I assign it. And now I have 30 in here. So this really opens up the gambit of options. You know, I can add things based on a tag being set. I can do it based on subscriptions. I can add multiple subscriptions. Oftentimes what we see is people will sell things like in an initial block, and maybe they just allow people to have multiple blocks, but it could be that they, you know, the minimum purchase is 20 and then you can add them in blocks of 10. So you can use a whole combination of this depending upon what the business model is that you want to support. So that's how the counts work. So now let's go over and see how the form itself, you know, how all these things work together. So this one here is just a simple paragraph. I don't have to use a, you know, what's called a Thrive custom HTML, but this one here is HTML code. So in here, what I'm doing is I'm adding what looks like a form wrapped up in these short codes. And then, so in this, oh gee, I shouldn't have deleted that. So let me show you, I could have come up and done this, like in the simplest of forms. And I'll save this. I'm purposely just showing you what an empty form looks like, because Infusion, Memberium gives you a really nice form, you know, just without doing any form work. So, I lied, I think I have a syntax error. Enroll child, open. Oh, I have the wrong. Well, I got a bug in my code somewhere, so it's not taking it. But you can come up and just create an enroll child button and you close it. It could be that maybe I'm doing these one right after the other and it's kind of annoying the system. Enroll child. That should work, actually. Okay, I've got some sort of syntax error. Let me not spend too much time on this. But really what we're trying to do here is create a form that allows the parent to enter the fields that are important to them. The default from Memberium only gives you first name, last name, email, and phone number. Oftentimes, customers don't really, my experience has been that most people don't care about the phone numbers because they're dealing with people they already know. You have to give them an email address, otherwise there's no way for them to log in because that's their username. And then, you know, so here's the phone. So anyway, there's a problem in my syntax in here somewhere, but that's, if you look up the way the umbrella enroll child button works, it'll work regardless of whether you know how to do this. So this is just the same syntax you would use in a regular HTML form. And then these names just have to be the names you would use in an Infusionsoft form to connect with either standard fields in Infusionsoft or custom fields if you want to store other information. So let's see one of these. Hold on a second. Sorry, I got my dog here who's all excited about something. So, oh, what do you know? I did, by the way, it's a syntax error. That's why it's doubling up this form on me. So, by the way, that was really dumb of me. I duplicated this form. Oh, whatever. Let me just keep going. So I'm going to refresh here. So let's add a new member. And now I can add a member because I've got more than enough space. So I'm going to create a child 2. And I'll just make them child2@anikagroup.com. And then we're going to add a member. And so you see now we've got this, and what I did is I put the label inside the loop, which I probably shouldn't have done, but it's just listing these out. So that's this part right here. Now let me show you, because this button here is the one that you can use to disconnect member, and this one, this link here is how I go straight to the student's progress. So if these are just regular fields. This contact ID works with the list. And so it's looping through all the contact IDs in the list of child accounts. It's doing the same for the email field. Now, the view progress, it's interesting how they got this to work. So this one is a custom field because there's HTML in there. what we're doing is we're passing the contact ID to the next page as a parameter on the URL. And then we're making a link out of this. So what we're doing on the next page is passing the parameter in, and then we're using a short code on the other page that's waiting for the parameter so that it knows which contact ID's progress it needs to research. So if I go then to that page, so I'll go to members are Jacob, and now it's the student progress page. You'll see that, so here I'm on this page, I'm just going to go into Thrive Architect. You'll see that there's one short code to use here. And you don't even have to pass the parameter into it. So it's umbrella ID course info, and it knows its context, and it's going to grab the contact ID from that page. So if I go over, so I'll go back over here. If you notice when I mouse over, you'll see that down here in the lower left, there's the contact ID of child number 2. Here's the one that goes with child number 1. So by using that curly bracket times 2 contact.id, it knows which one it is. So, I mean, literally, that's how you construct this new admin form. In the one that I showed at the beginning, there are 2 types of membership, ones that allow for the disconnect and ones that don't allow for the disconnect. And so all we do is we use a short code, has tag, has any tag, to identify which type they are, and then we display the correct loop of child accounts. So again, I mean, I'm going really fast over a lot of content. The Memberium site does a great job of giving you documentation on each one of these different shortcodes. So it's a matter of playing around with them. The link for the view member is the one I showed you, the last one, and this one is just kind of, where did I put it? I hate it when I open too many windows and then I get lost. Okay, so here's this one. There it is. Okay, so let me get out of here. I'll go to the previous page. That's not it. So I'll go back to manage members. We'll edit. This custom field right here just uses that syntax. And it'll automatically put the disconnect button in there for you.
I can't see your screen.
Oh, of course, if I shared the screen, it'd be easier, wouldn't it? You should have told me before.
Oh, no, it only just gone off.
Okay, so this is the disconnect button, and there's the syntax. This syntax comes right from the documentation for Infusionsoft. So, I mean, honestly, setting this up, I asked one of my guys, how long does it take you to build one of these? And he says, 2 hours. And I go, 2 hours? Why? He goes, oh, because getting the formatting just right and getting this column to look, pretty. So the pretty is what takes an effort. The Memberium stuff is actually very systematic. So that's the part that you configure on the Memberium side. There's the other part that you set up in the shortcodes. The last thing I want to leave with you is, how does Memberium tie all these people together? So let me log in over here. And so here I am in the parents account in Infusionsoft. I'm purposely going to refresh because I want to make sure that all the fields are correct. And I'll show you here. You see this referral code field? there's now a code there. If I go over to Memberium, and now I've got to go to I got to log in as the administrator. Memberium by default uses the referral partner code. You can use a custom field. There's really, we use the referral code just because the name sounds right. And it's a field that very people ever use anyway. So I've got umbrella accounts. So you see here, the child fields to match the parents field to match to. This is a selectable field. It could have really been a whole bunch of other things. So if I want to find out who's connected to who, I go over to this and I look at this field. This number is just a long number. There's nothing really special about it. The prefix is what tells you who the parent is in the group. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this field and I'm going to go and do a search for contacts, and I'm going to do a search under miscellaneous fields for referral codes. So I'm going to go anything that contains and so this one has the parent code prefix PRNT. If I open up any of the child accounts, you'll see that in the referral code, it has CHLD. This ends up being really convenient. I've had to work projects where we're migrating people from other systems over to this. And so I told them, I go, look, can you send me the relationships in a spreadsheet? And it's usually difficult to do because they've got to tell me which one's the parent and which groups belong together. But if you can do that and you can generate, I mean, I just pretty much, I've used the Infusionsoft contact number, contact ID. It's just a way of generating a number. If you can create, 10 accounts and you put, for 9 of them, the prefix CHLD and that number, and then for the parent, you use the same number with the PRNT, it will, voila, just work. And if you give the parent the ability to log in, because you give them the right Memberium tags, now when they go to the Manage My Members, it will see all the child accounts that are related to it. This also becomes a nice feature when you have a group of people. Let's say there's 5 members and the person who's the administrator leaves the organization. They quit, they get fired, and now you've got a group with an orphan. They're orphaned from a parent. Well, you can remove the PRNT prefix and give it to someone else, and now that person is still related to everybody else, but everybody's a child underneath them. Now you do have to think through all the other things. Who's paying for the subscription? So you may have to create a new subscription under the other person's name. You can go, I don't think in Infusionsoft you're allowed to get a subscription and assign it to someone else, but it's just now it's a matter of charging that other person and treating them like the other parent. But if you had like 100 child accounts, you don't have to sit there and visit 100 child accounts to add the new parent. The retying back up of people happens very smoothly. So, I mean, honestly, in a nutshell, that's how parent-child accounts work.
And is the referral code field, is that generated by Memberium?
Is the number generated by Memberium?
Yeah.
Yes. When you come up and you create a parent, when you create a member, the first time they log in or when you do the make pass feature, When Memberium sees that they're a parent, it creates that number.
Okay.
But I remember when I was first migrating, there was a big account I had to migrate last year. I was wondering, oh my gosh, I wonder if there's anything special about that number. You know, does it have to be? And it's really just a long number that's never duplicated. And but Memberium will create it on the fly for you, and then when you create a new child account, it'll use that same number. Now, honestly, there are many other features built into umbrella accounts, but the idea that I think you really have to get in your head is the parent is the one who pays the bills. They're the ones that have the parent tag, and that's just something to tell Memberium who they are. The permissions in Memberium work the same way via the tags. So that's what tells you what that person's allowed to log into and not. You never want to give the child accounts the membership tags, because what you want to happen is when you remove the parent's access, you want the child accounts to lose access as well. And what happens is, if I'm a child of a parent, I inherit their membership tags. So if you went and you gave the child, you know, membership level tag number 2, then if you remove it from the parent, the child still has that access tag. So it's an inheritance model that, you know, it grows from the parent to the child. You can create additional tags, like not only do I want it to inherit the membership tags, I want it to inherit these other 7 tags that tell you something about segmentation and whatever that might be. So that's what I'm saying, you know, that could be topic for a whole other course. But you really do get a lot of flexibility with umbrella accounts.
Okay. Does the child have their own login then?
Their own what?
Their own credentials to log into the member area?
They need to have their own password, so you have to generate a password for them.
Okay.
But you never give them the tags. And then so when I showed you the action sets that get executed when the child account is created, that's where you want to make sure they have a password assigned, because otherwise they won't be able to log in. You treat it the same way you would you know, with Memberium otherwise, where if they already have a password, you set the make password HTTP call so it doesn't overwrite it, because that would be impolite. But you want to make sure you don't put them down the same sequences that you put the parents, because otherwise you will give them the authorization, and you want them to inherit the authorization from the parent.
Got it. Got it.
Cool. So Elizabeth, how's this?
I've been listening. I'm sorry. I just had
No, that's fine. Do you have any questions?
Well, so this is mostly, I think, for if I have other professionals working under me and they're the parent, I'm making them the parent, and so their clients are the child. Is that right?
Yeah, so let me give you a couple of examples of how people use these. So okay. the example of that course that I was showing at the beginning, that's a lady who provides counseling programs for counselors to use with their patients. So she's a train the trainer type. And right. So she may have like a solo practitioner and they buy one account. But the most frequent model is there'll be a nursing home, or there'll be a hospital, or there'll be an agency, and they buy a 50-person license. And then you have an administrator in that company, and then they dish them out. So I've worked with people, for example, there was one customer we had that prior to them starting to use Memberium and umbrella accounts, they would sell training programs to credit unions. So it's ways for credit unions to grow their memberships and things like that. And so they had like a course for tellers, they had a course for the managers, they had course for the people that sell new accounts. And they were manually, once a month, they would like get information from the credit unions and said, hey, who quit? Who did you hire? And they literally had to manage all that manually.
Oh, wow.
So now with this system, they're allowed to come up. And remember I mentioned that you can have inheritance of different things.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to inherit the personality of the person. So not every, like the tellers don't get the same courses that the branch manager would have. But it's all managed through one person. It's all paid through one person.
Right.
In their case, we did it via, they were doing all the purchases offline. So the counts were actually done with tags. So they had tags for different blocks, different numbers of these things.
Yeah.
They weren't too concerned with theft necessarily, because they would, at the end of the month, they would work the tallies with the customer. They bought an initial block as part of another consulting engagement they had. And then if there's any growth, they would send them an invoice at the end of the month.
Okay.
But that's why, I mean, it can be used a lot of different ways. I mean, you can actually kind of get creative, and the Memberium short codes allow you to do stuff.
Well, it's a way for me to, the train the trainer thing, I think, is what really I grasp, because it's a way, if I train people, I can allow them access to a certain level of my programs for their clients, and at a certain level of number of clients, depending on what they want.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, the classic Memberium model is I set you up with a course and then you go through the course. If you have a coaching model and you're providing services, maybe one-on-one or one-to-many, and then this is a support system, you really don't care how many people get access to it, because your contract or your relationship is more at a corporate level.
Right.
But it's like, hey, look, by the way, the program comes with 25 seats, and then you get rid of the managing of those accounts. That's the real big advantage, because otherwise you as the consultant, they're like, oh, Mary quit, but now Jenny is in her place. Can you give her the license? And it's like, oh, yeah, of course I can. And, each one of those is 10, 15 minutes.
Right. Okay. So if I'm working with a company, for example, and a company buys 100 seats, they manage their 100 seats.
Yeah, let them deal with that.
They're paying the bill. They're managing who gets a seat.
Yeah, or you come up and it's like, well, we really don't have an administrator. Well, it's like, that's an additional processing fee. And then, maybe if that's a requirement, you set up, you get yourself a virtual assistant to kind of manage that. But
Right.
they're paying a premium,
For that, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd want to get out of that business as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a pain. Okay.
So I mean, pretty much that's what I have with the program. If you go through the tabs in the website, I actually removed gamification. It ends up requiring like a whole other session, which I think is kind of beyond this. Out of all the courses that out of all the sites that I've used, you have to be pretty far on the mature side of the business to really appreciate those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that might be something I add as a bonus, but I thought including it in this was just kind of it was too much, and I can't cover it in the 4 weeks.
Okay.
But there is the social learner stuff in there. That section is in there mainly to warn you, don't use it unless you really need it.
Amen.
It really,
I dipped my toe in, and I was like, I don't need this.
Well, the thing is, it's promoted in such a way that people are attracted to the layout of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not using the community aspect of it, you have to turn them all off. And sometimes it even requires using some style sheets to make things work right. And it's like, it's more, I had one customer that actually paid us to dumb it down. And it's kind of like, man, I would have charged you less not to. And then you've got menus that don't really make sense, because you'd have to have a lot of functions to need like the right sidebar in addition to the left side. So that's it. And now we do also have which this is kind of it's interesting. It's like almost like a prequel to this. We have the breakthrough course selling system, which is how do you do some market research to validate that your course will sell. When I initially released these, I set them up as one course. And what ended up happening was most people never got to building the course because they really bought it for the sales aspect of it. So I've sliced it in half. And as a matter of fact, the perfect starter kit site that I have installed in your environments actually came out of that. And we just kind of had it and almost threw it in. But I've had a big demand for that. And now that's its own product. So, as you guys go forward, if you do see people that have online courses and they're a little gun shy about, gosh, I don't want to invest a whole lot of money and time in something that's like a dead idea. It really forces you to vet your audience and then launch a beta program with the idea, can I sell it? And if you can't sell it in a beta mode at a reduced price to people who already know who you are, you've probably got a lemon, and it's better to find out you have a lemon at the beginning than to find it out after you've built some monstrosity.
That sounds good. How can we find that?
How can you find that? I was actually working on the sales page for that. And tomorrow, and I was preparing it because tomorrow I'm doing the Infusionsoft Booster. And that's one of the topics I'm covering. But I'll send you a link to that so you can kind of read it through.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Cool. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop recording.